a lot of times what's going to happen is we're going to be given data and asked if it's linear or exponential. So here you can see I'm over at Google Docs spreadsheet. And what I'm going to do is to show you how to create some linear data, and then we're going to check to see if it's linear. We're going to create and some exponential data, and then we're going to check to make sure it's exponential. And then we'll just play a little bit and see if what happens if we try to look at an exponential function, for example, and see if it's linear. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to here. You can see in the first column I want x's. In the second column, those are icky numbers, but that really does look like b plus mx, so it really should be linear. What I'm going to do is just put in some evenly spaced x values. These could be icky, but I'm just going to make them nice for the moment. Help minus 2, minus 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Did I actually make them evenly spaced? I think I did. So what I'm going to do, this is a big step number 1, you have to start with an equals because we're going to want Google Docs to do all the hard work. So what I want to do is I want to take 17.73 plus, and then our 32.1495 times, and I'm not going to type in x. What I'm going to do is move my cursor over to this x value column right next to it and just click on that. And when I press enter, you can see it automatically put in the number for me. Now, I don't want to do this every time, right? I want Google Docs to do this for me. So this is what you do. You go click on the number that you just typed in the formula for, and you go over to the corner. You can see that it's a little blue box, and when you put the cursor over it, it sort of turns into a little cross. If I left click it like this and then drag it down like this, it's going to fill it in with all the right numbers, and that's supposed to be linear data. Now, how do we check to see if it's linear? Write ourselves a little note here. Check to see if it's linear. Well, we've done this before. What we want to do is take the differences. We want to take each y value and subtract the previous one. And I want to make Google Docs do it, right? So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the second slot because I want to take the number right here and subtract the number right here. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to write equals. And then I'm going to go click on the first number, and I want to put a minus sign. And then I'm going to go click above it on the number I want to subtract. And so you can see that I have B3 minus B2, and when I click, I get a number. Now that is the minus 14 blah 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 minus the minus 46 blah blah blah. Now I want to see if I get the same answers for all the others, but I don't want to do the work. So what I'm going to do is click on this cell, the one where we actually had to do the typing in. I'm going to try to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to move the little arrow until it hits the blue box. It turns into a little cross. I left click and hold, and then I drag down. Ta-da! You can see that all the differences are the same, so yay, it's linear. I mean, we knew it was linear, but that's how you check to see if it's linear data. You just take the first y value, the second y value, subtract the first y value, do the hard calculation, and then drag and make Google Docs do all the other one. So that's how you create linear data, and that's how you check linear data. Now let's go to the next page where I'm going to try to create and check exponential. I'm going to put in the same x values as I did before. We're just trying to make some data and check it. So minus 2, minus 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, oops, 4, 5. By the way, there's an easy way of make that data too, but I'm not going to worry about that today. Okay, so what I want to do is in this box right here, I want 5.37 times 2.9456 to the minus 2. But I want Google Docs to do it. So I type an equals first, and I put in my 5.37 times 2.9456 to the, and I'm not going to type x. I'm going to click on the number I want to put in for x. That's this number right in here. And I click, and that should be right. Now, how do I create the rest of the data? Again, we try to be as lazy as possible. We want Google Docs to do it. So I move my arrow over to the little blue box. I click, left click and hold, and then I drag down. Okay, I missed. Try that again. Drag down. Yay, there's all the numbers. And that's supposed to be exponential data. Now you could graph this data. It's not as easy with Google Docs spreadsheets to graph it as it is with Desmos. Desmos better for graphing. Uh, spreadsheets better for calculating. Now I want to check to see if this is exponential. Check to see if it's exponential. Now remember, if it's exponential, what happens? You don't add the same thing each time, right? What you do is you're multiplying by the growth factor. I don't want to worry about what the growth factor is. I do want to make sure that to go from each y value to the next, I'm multiplying by the same thing each time. Now, how do I check that, right? In the same way before, when I wanted to see if I was adding the same thing each time, I took this number and I subtracted this number. I checked it with differences. If I want to see if it's exponential, that is, that I'm multiplying by the same number each time, I'm going to check that by using a ratio. So it's going to be this term divided by this term. And since these are going up by ones, I'm thinking I should get the growth factor, but we're going to see. And what I want to do here, I want the ratio. So I type equals. That's going to tell Google Docs to calculate something. So I'm going to take this y value right here, and I'm going to divide it by this value right here. And that should give me the ratio. And by the way, you can see that it actually did give me the growth factor, so it did check that. Now I want to make sure I get that same ratio every time so that it looks to me like I'm multiplying by the growth factor each time. So I go to the number that we typed very hard to calculate. I take my arrow, I put it over the blue box, I left click, I drag, and you can see that we checked it to see if it was exponential, and sure enough, it is exponential data. Now in real life, by the way, because they round data, these numbers would just be close to each other. But we just created this data. We know it's exponential, and it checks just fine. Now, I want to try something stupid just to see what happens. I'm going to go to this one, and I'm going to make some exponential data and see if it's linear. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to go -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8. Now this one right here, I want exponential data. So I'm going to type in the formula I have at the top. That's 3 times 2.5 to the, and again, it's not going to be x. It's going to be the number that I want for x. And I don't type it in. I click on it. Go like that. Yay. That should be 3 times 2.5 to the -2. Now, I want to make Google Docs fill out the column. So I click on that box that we spent so much time calculating and typing. I take my arrow, I put it over the little box, it turns into a little cross, I drag it down, and I'm getting what I'm hoping is exponential data. And we already saw what happens when we check to see if it's exponential data. It works. What happens to see if I try to check to see if this is linear, right? Well, let's check to see if it's linear. What I'm supposed to do is take each number and subtract the previous one. So I'm going to take this. I want Google Docs to do the calculating, so I have an equals. Then I take this number right here, and we're checking to see if it's linear. And so I subtract the previous number, like this, and I get a number. Now I can't tell if this is linear or exponential yet, because what we need, if it's linear, to get all the differences all to be exactly the same. And we're going to let Google Docs make the calculation. So I click on this box right here. I take my little arrow. I go over the blue box until it turns into a cross. I left click. I drag, and it ain't linear, right? If it was linear, all these numbers would be the same. I can't tell that it's exponential this way either, but I can definitely tell it's not linear. So that's at least the basics of creating linear data, checking linear to see if data is linear, creating exponential data, checking and seeing if data is exponential.